All right, good morning, everybody. And, let me reach up there and bump that camera back over. Yeah, that's better. And it looks like we've got one of the Steves, James Royster's with us. Biscuits and Gravy. Good morning, Biscuits and Gravy. And there is His Majesty, the old granddad. Steve says, never thought I'd hear an American president threaten his populace so blatantly. So, yeah. So good old Scranton Joe's decided he's just gonna nuke the Republicans. I mean...
Yeah. and to be fair, that's not exactly what he said, but...
No, man, it was more like, nice country you got here. Shame if anything were to happen to it. So, I'm just going to play the clip. Let's do this.
The Second Amendment, from the day it was passed, limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of patriots, and all the stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you want to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. The point is that there's always been the ability to rationally limit the type of weapon that can be owned and who can own it. The Second Amendment.
So, I mean, there's
so much in that paragraph.
So much. So before we even deal with his little, and like the eye scratch, like, the truth is you need F-15s and nuclear weapons. And he does a little eye scratch like, here's the signal. Yeah, okay. Like, no, I was never in Afghanistan. Wink. I'm going to try. Guys, I'm going to try so hard not to use the 4-letter expletives. Because it helps to improve the reach of the video. You get deranked and everything when you start dropping the F-bombs, but this just might not be the morning, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try. But let's just start with the beginning of his statement. I'm gonna play that little bit of the statement again.
From the day it was passed, limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of the...
That's a lie. He can't not know that's an absolute falsehood. When Madison was asked by private ship captains if they could purchase cannons for their ships, he basically, he wrote a letter, and the letter basically says, we did ratify the Second Amendment. I don't understand why you're even asking me this. I don't even understand why you're asking me this question.
Yeah, and there's no limits on it. That's the important thing. So to say that you couldn't buy cannons, like what do you think we shot at the British soldiers? For that matter, what do you think the British soldiers shot at us? It's was your heavy artillery.
Now, in fairness, the question, what did the British soldiers shoot at us, has less to do with the lawful ownership of general firearms in the United States. But Steve points out correctly, most of the cannons that were used back then were privately owned by citizens and loaned to the government. See, another thing that Joe's not taking into account here is that from the beginning thing, guys, in the beginning, the government was tiny, and it was not yet stealing all of our money. Okay? If you think you're paying too much in taxes, you probably don't really understand how much you're paying in taxes. Because let me tell you, by the time you get through income tax, property tax, sales tax, gas tax, etc., 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 more than half of all your money, if you're in the lowest possible tax bracket, more than half of your money is being taken by the government. Because it's not just the taxes that you pay directly, but the prices of everything that you purchase, every good or service that you engage with, that price is also set in part by the taxes levied against the corporations and companies that are providing those products and services. But 200 years ago, Uncle Sam didn't have the infinite bank of fake China to borrow against. They had to borrow their cannons and their rifles. This was one of the reasons that the Second Amendment mentions a militia, to arm the military to do the work of the military in the early days of the United States. It was relied upon the men of this country to own the firearms they needed. Was that too much, Cameron?
No, I'm just waiting on you to play the next part of the clip.
Okay. I thought you might have more to add to it, but here we go. Here's the rest of the clip. Let's dig in a little more.
The blood of patriots, and all the stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not watered with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there are...
Okay, that statement right, the tree of liberty is not watered with the blood of patriots.
He's misquoting Thomas Jefferson, and you got to wonder, is he doing it on purpose? Is his brain just the consistency of a sunny side up egg? And
I think what happened there is he was deliberately attempting to misquote and then failed to do it usefully. But the quote is, from time to time, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots. Which is to say that war is necessary, and in the conduct of war, there are losses on both sides. And in order to engage in war, which is necessary, now that's not to say that all wars are necessary, but war generally, war is not a thing that we do. Okay? War is the natural state of man. The civilization, the civility, the society, all the shiny Mickey D's and cruising highways that we enjoy here in the United States are part of this grand theater. They don't exist unless we continue to actively pretend that they exist. And I hope that we do continue to actively pretend, that we continue to put on the production that is civility and civilization and enjoy the benefits of that absolute miracle of a fairy tale. But the fact of the matter is, it is a fabrication which does not exist unless we all continue to agree to pretend that it does. Without that active, engaged, cooperative effort, the natural state of man is constant warfare. Period. Fact check that shit.
Civilization is the ultimate game that all of us play.
And I broke the 4-letter word thing. Still going to try to back it up a little bit. Still going to try to back off. I haven't dropped an F-bomb yet. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. So it's kind of like what he's trying to say is that nobody ever thought that you had to overthrow the government. More than one of the founding fathers quite clearly stated that you should be worried if there hasn't been a revolution within the last 20 years.
Well, maybe we should be, because they're coming for your guns. They're not coming for your guns. That's all imaginary. Except there's that whole David Chipman clown. So I watched the whole speech, and I actually think while Joe, because he's Joe, gave us those juicy choice sound bites, it's actually what Merrick Garland said that really caught my attention. To summarize, Merrick Garland wants to expand the ATF for the purpose of there being inspectors in every office, and what these inspectors will do will be to commit inspections on gun dealers whose guns show up at crime scenes. They came with some statistic that said 90% of the guns recovered from crime scenes come from 5% of gun dealers. Now, obviously, they didn't cite their sources or anything, but that's the pretense this is being done under.
I find that incredibly dubious. Because for one, you're telling me, okay, what gun dealers are you talking about? Are you talking about 5% of all gun dealers in America, or 5% of the gun dealers in the high crime states and cities? And are you talking about all gun dealers, or are you talking about only legal gun dealers? I mean, are you saying that 5% of all gang-related gun violence is committed using guns that were bought from the same 5% of all illegal gun sellers? I mean, it's an incredibly vague and misleading statistic to begin with.
Well,
and then even if the statistic is legitimate, what you're telling me is that with that number, what you're telling me is that of the licensed gun dealers, only those in a very narrow set of locations, and this will get us to the 5 cities in just a second, only those are doing the work illegally. So that statistic is, I mean, just it's bunk from the ground up. It's unintelligible.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. They're going to treat it like it's true, and it's their excuse to do the things that they're going to do, which is to commit inspections. And yes, I did say commit inspections instead of perform inspections.
Correct, because one commits crimes, and the ATF, from its inception, as we've covered more than once now on this show, is a criminal organization acting in active defiance of the law and the Constitution.
But I think this is all starting to tie together. It's why they want David Chipman, and now they want to expand the ATF itself, so they can go around and they can inspect gun dealers. They understand that they can't go after gun owners directly through executive action. That's just too sticky of a wicket. However, they can go after gun dealers, and this is a fantastic way to kind of backdoor your way into a national gun registry. This is a fantastic way to decrease access to guns, because if I'm allowed to buy all the guns that I want to buy, but people are terrified to sell me the guns, I can't really buy all the guns that I want to buy because people don't want to sell them to me. They also made a big deal over background checks and background checks and background checks. Again, this is such a red herring. It's already illegal to be a gun dealer and not perform a background check when you sell somebody a gun, right? So if you break that law, you're already breaking the law. So acting as though we need some new set of laws or some new set of regulations because, oh man, it's terrible that sometimes people don't run a background check. They already have to. So what they could be going after there is the person-to-person gun transaction. Like, Chris wants a new gun. He sells me his old one at a discount. I get a good deal on a gun. He gets a little cash for his old gun. And that's a thing that gun owners do with one another. Not to mention, gun culture itself revolves around the ability to gift one another firearms, have firearms stay in the family. That's one of those things that I've talked about before that I feel like is under assault. So, you know, the expansion of the ATF is the really big takeaway here. At least I think. Now, I could be wrong because there's that whole bullshit about the 5 strike forces that are going to go after the 5 cities. Interagency strike forces. Let me be clear. I I'm not even entirely sure what those are, apart from Merrick Garland saying that 5 cities, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and a couple others I can't remember off the top of my head, were, they've got a gun trafficking problem. And these strike forces are going to go after the gun trafficking problem in these cities, and they're going to go after the gun trafficking that happens in the corridors in between the cities. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally ignorant on this. But internally, how many guns are trafficked through the United States?
Oh God, that's a big number. I don't know.
But is it gun trafficking in the sense of, okay, we're going to sell 250 heavy weapons to a Russian arms dealer gun trafficking? Or is it one gang sells guns to another gang?
I hate to say it, Cameron, but I'm not legitimately prepared to have that conversation.
Fair enough. Well, ever since I heard about this gun trafficking thing, it made me wonder, so what exactly do they mean by gun trafficking? Because the gun trafficking that you see in Hollywood, I would contend, doesn't happen inside the U.S. borders all that often, because it doesn't have to. Because you could just go buy guns legally, and even if you're going to buy them illegally from the black market, it's not that hard to get a hold of them. It's only in places where weapons are restricted that this kind of gun trafficking is necessary. So what does Merrick Garland mean by gun trafficking? Because I was able to parse through the suggestions for the ATF to expand them, to have these inspectors that, if you're a gun dealer and a gun that you sold shows up at a crime scene, you might have somebody from the ATF show up and ask you for your papers. I was able to put that together, but I can't quite puzzle through what's going on with this strike force thing.
Well, I think first and foremost, I would say that the only reason somebody would start taking precautions to disarm American citizens is because he plans on doing something that we're likely to want to have arms for. So let's listen to the rest of the clip again real quick. Get to the threat itself.
Never been. If you want to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. The point is that it's all.
So, and he scratches his eye. That's one of those body language things where, that it's suspicious to see it happen. And I mean that just sounds a hell of a lot like nice country you got here. Shame if anything were to happen to it. And let's not forget, we're talking about the former vice president to the Obama administration. An administration which, and guys, I know some of these guys that they drone struck were bad dudes, but they were U.S. citizens. We're talking about a man who was the runner-up commander-in-chief while the U.S. was actively ramping up drone strike type assassinations and actually assassinating U.S. citizens abroad with military drone strikes. So the idea that you're gonna put it past him to murder Americans for his political aims, I mean, like I said, it's no longer reasonable to trust anyone who even votes Democrat to be a good faith actor. There are no more people who even vote Democrat who can be regarded as anything other than domestic enemies of the United States interested explicitly in her destruction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, it's funny, though. I've seen a bunch of things on Twitter that have made me chuckle, and I agree. So, And okay, Uncle Joe, I find your terms acceptable. When can I have my fighter jet?
Yeah, exactly. I find your terms acceptable. And in keeping with the Obamacare assertion that a right is something for which the government should be subsidizing, I will take my fighter jet in the pig fart model. Thank you kindly.
Yes.
There's just something about a flying bathtub covered in rotating barrels that helps keep me from rolling out of bed at night.
Right.
So that was a non-amphibious priapism reference.
I was just going to skip right over it. You don't have it in the clip there, but during Joe's portion of the speech, he actually, and I can't remember the exact quote, so excuse me for paraphrasing, but he actually said, you're going to have people tell you that gun control is pointless because it doesn't work in places like Chicago. Don't listen to those people. They're lying to you. The problem is you don't have to buy a gun in Illinois. You can buy a gun in Indiana and you can bring it to Illinois. And
correct.
That's true.
And you don't have to buy a gun in hey, Cameron, you don't have to buy a gun in America. The border's wide open. You can go buy it from a cartel in Mexico, and nobody's going to stop you from bringing it back here.
Yeah, but nah.
And let's not forget, again, old Scranton Joe was VP with the Fast and the Furious scandal.
Oh, we could just get some of the American guns back.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, look, the guns are brought to these cities because of the gun control. It's not because it's legal to buy guns, 50 miles away from Chicago. It's because guns are so heavily restricted in Chicago. You incentivize a black market for weapons in Chicago. So,
well, you don't just incentivize a black market for weapons in Chicago. It's not just the black market for weapons. It's the market demand for crime generally, and the weapons are a tool that are engaged therewith. The fact that Chicago has been so aggressively disarmed, that the law-abiding citizens of Chicago have been so disarmed by being a Democrat majority-run city for more than 50 years, makes Chicago the place you want to go to commit crimes. And it so happens that those crimes are being committed with firearms. And that's simply because, like all the schools that have ever suffered a mass shooting, every location that has ever suffered a mass shooting except that one Luby's in Texas, apparently, it's a gun-free zone. It's a soft target of opportunity. It's a target-rich environment. You've basically got a population of squishy victims just waiting to bullet sponge their way through the next victim grievance culture and get swallowed up by the only people you can't disarm, you freaking Muppet.
Yeah, Chicago is a giant soft target. That's a good way to look at it. And it's because that the odds of a good guy shooting back are incredibly low.
Well, for example, look at last year. We saw BLM protests in cities like Atlanta and Houston and Dallas, right? That the protests occurred there. But what we didn't see in those cities, unlike what we saw in places like Portland and Seattle, were BLM activists just straight up murdering people in broad daylight for no cause greater than he was wearing a Trump hat.
Yeah, there's no autonomous zones in those armed areas. It's funny that.
Because you come around my neighborhood, set up an autonomous zone, and tell me that I can no longer call the police if I need them. I can no longer call an ambulance if I need it. I can no longer call a fire engine if I need it. And what I hear is, there's nobody to stop me from shutting down this autonomous zone so that I can restore all of those services that my taxes pay for. And so...
You just volunteered to be fertilizer, buddy.
Yeah. I suddenly, I will have the best tomatoes you can find.
Hey, real quick before we go, can we talk about the other big thing that happened yesterday?
Oh my God. Okay, so yes, let's just go ahead and switch tracks, and we'll do this for the last couple of minutes. It appears that, was it yesterday or the day before, the planet Earth managed apparently successfully to uninstall McAfee, which is something that I've been trying to do for a long time, and it just keeps creeping back up. But apparently McAfee totally killed himself, and nobody reasonably doubts that.
Yeah, it just, and look, okay, I get it, dude was weird, okay, he was a walking meme lord, like, seriously, he was meme culture personified, okay, and he was looking at some serious problems here in the U.S. They were really going to try and crawl all the way up inside his ass over taxes. But dude had millions of dollars. You know, he could have hired the best legal team. He could have negotiated, go into an extremely soft prison, and you know, there's a lot he could have done. Plus, apparently, about a year ago, when he first got picked up by the authorities, he was in Spain, right? This is a Spanish jail.
Yes.
Okay. Well, when he first got picked up, somehow he had access to Twitter, and he tweeted out that, you know, he was good, the food was good, and if he ever hung himself, a la Jeffrey.
Oh, no, hang on. I've actually got the tweet pulled up for this. John McAfee, you know, blue check mark, at official McAfee. He tweeted this out on November 30th of 2019, right? So basically, right after the. No, I'm sorry, but well, anyway, right before the pandemic started. And he tweeted, "I'm getting subtle messages from U.S. officials saying, in effect, we're coming for you, McAfee. We're going to kill yourself. I got a tattoo today just in case. If I suicide myself, I didn't. I was whacked. Check my right arm." Right? And his right arm has a tattoo on it that says whacked with a $sign in front of it. So, I mean, it's possible that he changed his mind, but I suspect no.
Well, I'll ask publicly the same question I asked privately. Dude has done some bizarre things just for the fun, just for the lulz. Do you think maybe, like, at least it's possible it's like a really, really dark, I mean, pitch black joke? He set all this up where I'd never kill myself, and then he kills himself just to be the meme warrior one more time.
Yeah, no. Like, I just don't see it.
Yeah, it's just hard for me because Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, and obviously people do occasionally kill themselves in jail. It's a reason why there's suicide watch and certain precautions are taken. Like, I get that, but okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is this the one that where somebody actually killed themselves? Because it's hard to fathom. I'm going to look at every suicide in jail suspiciously for the rest of my life, I think.
Oh, certainly.
Is also part of the problem. It's like, oh, yeah, sure. just like Jeffrey Epstein killed himself.
And as Steve points out, Epstein's case had pretty obvious removal of guards, disabled cameras, etc., etc., and that's fair. As far as we know, so far, we don't have any super suspicious extenuating circumstances like that surrounding this case. But also, Steve, I would point out that we're talking about a prison in a foreign country that is not the U.S., and so I don't really have a good understanding of what the standards are for their security there. They may just not have. There may be no cameras to disable to begin with.
Yeah, I had a similar thought. I barely trust my own state's ability to incarcerate people correctly. I have zero faith in any foreign state's ability to do it.
Yeah.
But that's all I got. Just an RIP.
And just one last thing. We can solve all of these problems with incarceration. We can solve a lot of the crime rate, right? We can solve all the questions of whether or not somebody did or didn't get, an Arkansas necktie from old Uncle Bill. If we just do one thing, we could even solve the national debt. If we just do one simple thing. We take a Midwest state, we put a wall around it, and we turn it into the Thunderdome. Put that shit on pay-per-view and pay off the Chinese. That's all I got for you today. Y'all be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning for Firearms Friday. Love you guys, and take care.